We're going to harvest some worm castings. Hello you legends, what's going on? Okay, so we're going to harvest worm castings from this particular worm farm. Hopefully the wonderful sunshine isn't going to impede our visuals, but if that's going to happen, that's going to happen. Not much you can do about it. So this is a worm farm and we're going to harvest worm castings out of it. We also need to get rid of all of the worm castings in here because I'm going to use this worm farm to start another worm farm, meaning we're going to empty this one out, get rid of all the worm castings and the worms, clean it out, and we're going to establish a worm farm from scratch with this particular worm farm. I'm going to do this for a couple of reasons. We've already got a frugal worm farm, which is our $6 do-it-yourself broccoli bin worm farm. It's just over there, I can see it right now. We'll be checking up on that one very, very soon. That video is up if you want to go and check that one out. We are going to establish a new worm farm from like a worm farm kit that you would get from a store like Bunwa if you're in Australia or some other hardware store. Don't actually know if these tumbleweed worm cafes are available in other parts of the world. It'd be interesting to know that if they are actually available in other parts of the world. Anyway, let's get to the things that we're going to need. I'm going to need a big bin like this to collect all the worm castings in, because I mean, that's what we're doing. We're harvesting worm castings, so they've got to go somewhere. They're going to go in here. I also have a whole bunch of bark. Now, this bark is going to get used to layer the worm castings. So, 1, 2, maybe 3. I've got about 1 centimetre of bark just lining the bottom here. I'd pick it up and show you, but you're not going to be able to see it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out castings on top of that, and then bark, and then castings, and then bark. This is just the way that I do it. You could do it a different way. And if you do it a different way, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I don't actually know the best way to store worm castings, and I don't know the best way to keep them, but I know that this way works really well for me. There's a few reasons why. It doesn't dry out the worm castings, it keeps them wet, but the bark also helps soak up excess moisture. You're going to use your bark in your houseplants or in your garden, so worm castings and bark, they marry up really well together. You can do this with other mediums if you want. You can do this with like perlite or perlite for the fans. But the idea here is that we're kind of soaking up excess moisture from the worm castings whilst also layering it with a medium that we are going to eventually use for our plants or garden. They're the 2 things we're going to need. We're going to need a couple of extra things as well. I'm also going to use these to collect the worm castings. Usually fill up in here because it's much easier to do that, and then transfer it into here. And then we've got another one for the rubbish or something else you might need. Also, one last thing, this is going to take a long time. We'll get into that as I'm doing the worm castings, as I'm harvesting everything. But this is going to be one of those things where you harvest a little bit, go do something else, come back. Harvest a little bit more, go do something else, come back. It'll all make sense very, very soon. I've moved the cameras around just a little bit because we want to see directly into our worm farm. This is what your worm farm's going to look like when you get in there. We got some stuff. Look, you're going to have some creepy crawlies. There's a couple of little spiders. Nothing to worry about though. They're harmless. That's always a good sign. Let's get that open. Great. I've found leaving my avocado skins up like that has been really beneficial for our worms because they end up clumping up together like that, and that's kind of how they procreate. All these little spiders and bugs have gone crazy. Again, you're gonna get bugs, it's fine. So this is just the feeder layer. Got heaps of really good worm castings, worms doing all the great stuff. This is excellent. Cool. We're not going to harvest from this layer just yet, but this is what your worm castings are hopefully going to look like. Nice and fluffy, kind of little balls. They're sticking together. Really healthy dirt. Okay, cool. That's great. Anyway, let's get this top layer off because we're not going to use it just yet, that is. This is one of the layers we're going to harvest from. Okay, so what you want to do is take off the top layer and you want to expose your worms to light. Worms will burrow down deeper into the worm farm when you expose them to light. So at the moment, I've got all of this great natural sunlight that's coming in, so I don't necessarily need to create artificial light. If you want to do that, or if you want to speed up the process, I'd suggest getting like a lamp and putting the lamp over here, or a ring light. I've done the ring light in the past. If I'm not getting good results here, like I've got this little guy here, I'm not sure, maybe I'll be able to zoom in here, but he's just burrowing down. He or she is just burrowing down now because of the light. Got a couple of other ones around here. You'll see it over time. I'll try and get a bit of a time lapse happening where the worms will eventually burrow down deeper just because of all the light. I'm also going to go in bare hands. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I'm going to go in bare hands. And this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to put my collection tub right there, and I'm just going to scrape my hand over the top layer, just being careful not to expose any, or not to drag up any worms. And again, this is a bit of a long process. Right now, it's usually the top part is usually pretty safe just to collect whatever you can collect without dragging any worms along with you. And look, you're going to get a couple of worms here and there. There's not really much you can do about it. But generally, it's just sort of like rake your hand over the top with your fingers spread out and sort of disturb the top layer and just grab some worm castings. Check to see that you're not getting any worms. You're probably not at this point when you expose your worms, this layer. Ooh, but like there's a little wormy guy. So if that happens, we can just throw them back in the feeder tray. You're gonna get some rubbish. We've talked about this before, but that's just like adhesive plastic stuff that the worms don't eat, so we can get rid of that. This is great. We're getting heaps of really good castings without heaps of worms. Right, so that's a really good sign. Okay, cool. Let's have a look over here. Hopefully you can see that. It's got some bark in there. All I'm going to do is sprinkle the castings on top. Simple like that. Let's go back over here so we can keep collecting the castings. I've got another one. I'm going to use this one just to collect like other stuff. So we're getting down to the layer where it's like there's an avocado skin, so that's still going. If we dig down a bit deeper, there's some more avocado skin. There's some more just plastic junk. Getting some good harvesting going on right now. I'm not getting a lot of worms. This is a really good layer. Cool, that looks good. Let's go over here, pour all that in. You might spot a few worms when you're doing that, so you can pull them out. We can also mix up our worms here and just get things moving a little bit. I'm just going to expose them all. And, ooh, what's that? I have no idea what this is and where it came from. There you go. Oh, there's some other stuff. Just some examples of what they won't eat. What is this? Oh, wow. This is from a Rubik's Cube packaging. So yeah, they ate the cardboard, but they didn't eat the packaging. How's that? So yeah, I'll just throw that out. Some other plastic bits. I'm just mixing everything up because I want to get those worms burrowing down deeper into the bottom layers. There's another resting tray underneath this one that I have here. And if I shake up all of these worms, of which there are heaps, it will encourage them all to bury deeper. down to the next layer, and then we can harvest all of these castings. So that's all mixed up right now. I'm gonna leave this exposed for a little bit. You can see a whole bunch of worms just filtering around here. Maybe I can zoom in, but we can see a whole bunch of worms filtering around. These worms are gonna bury down deeper and they're gonna disappear down into the next layer, which is down here. I'm just gonna put another layer of bark onto the castings that I've harvested, and it's gonna look like this. Maybe 20 minutes, something like that, maybe even 10 minutes. If I wash my hands, I'll come back. I'm not sure if you can tell, but a lot of the worms, well, pretty much all the worms are gone. I can't see any more worms at the moment. Yeah, it's a good time to get back in there and start harvesting some stuff. So again, you just rake over the top. And as you can see, there's no sort of worm chunks in there. So this, the second time through of harvesting, is going to be a bit, the castings are going to be a bit chunkier. There's going to be a bit more sort of composty stuff in the mix as well. You're probably going to come across a bunch more worms because a lot of them haven't yet burrowed down deeper. Cool, that's good. So now, there's all that. Spread it around. Cool, that's good for another layer. I'm just going to pick out all the worms. It's not like a little bit of plastic is going to like completely shatter your plant and stop it from growing. Let's leave that again for a while. I'll give it some more space and some more time and we'll come back. Great, we're back. So the worms have had a bit of time to burrow down deeper. I'm not seeing any of them now. You've probably got a really good view now because the sun's moved. Let's just scrape through. Yeah, cool, heaps of worms gone. Move over here, you can see. So hopefully we can speed this whole process up. Oh, okay, well, that bucket just fell in. What I'm gonna do is pull this one off. Let's put that on top, right. Before we do that, I'm just going to add another layer of bark. I'm collecting a few worms here and there, but that's okay. Again, the first collection should be pretty good. There shouldn't be too many worms in there. You should just be able to rake your hand over the top of it. Great, that's done. Let's move that to there. Castings. So that's cool. We might just leave it there. Put that in there. Cool. Spread all of that out. I'm just going to disturb the top here just to encourage our worms to bury down a little bit deeper. So you can see there's a whole bunch of worms. They'll burrow down deeper. But I harvested all the worm tea earlier and it's just been slowly draining out. And that's what it looks like. So I might just run around and give all the plants a bit of worm tea. But let's leave that and we'll come back and harvest some more castings. And cool. So I ran off and did some other chores. Now we're back. Yeah, so this is getting a bit wet and a bit chunky. This is, heaps of it is cocoa coir. So you'd find chunks of cocoa fiber in here. If you made it this far, give me some love and attention. Give me a like and a subscribe and a comment and I don't know, what other things are there? Just give me all those. Cool. Done. Never thought I'd be doing this on YouTube. So that's all the bark. And that's pretty much all the castings. This is full. It's also a little bit bouncy, so it hasn't settled in yet. But we're honestly getting so close to the end here. Might even just keep going. Anyway, I think that's enough discussion about ex-partners. It was just more interesting that I saw the name and I clicked on it and I looked at her profile and I was like, gee, that's a bold move from her. Maybe she didn't know it was me. She knew it was me. I can't help but laugh at some of this stuff. What else are you gonna do? Also, who cares? She can hate me all she wants. Like, I'm fine. I'm actually fine with it. I love those people. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't care. The I'm over it as well. Like, I'm over it. No, you're not. I'm over it. It's done. No, it's not. Cool. Let's get back to worms. So this is going really well. This is going really quick. Please, 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 don't go mind. Please, please, please. Do 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 do. Hop, hopping, get one thing, ego's another. I'm begging you, don't embarrass me, you bad person. So that's going really well. We've still got our feeder tray over here as well. There's our feeder tray, just chilling out, not doing much. No worms on top, so I'm thinking that they've all sort of burrowed down the bottom. They might actually be on the lid, which is cool. Like, normally I'd leave all of this stuff in there and just sort of keep moving and put the whole worm farm back together, but we need to empty out this worm farm because we're going to rebuild. We're going to empty this worm farm and then establish another one. So all of this kind of has to go. I mean, I'm not going to clean it out so it's completely brand new, fresh, you know, so it's not going to be completely like polished up. I mean, what's the point? We're just going to fill it up with worms again. And if it's empty, then we can rebuild and establish a new colony and get our worms nice and happy. I mean, these worms that I'm like messing around with now, these ones actually might be the worms that I'm going to use to start another colony in this particular bin. And I want to try and completely cover all of the castings. Cover them all up with bark. Should be able to trap some moisture. Sorry, that's going to be a good thing for the castings. You don't want your castings to dry out because they'll lose all of that nutrients. So that's done. I'm going to put this to the side for the minute. Look, it's not overly heavy, but it's not light. Let's give everything a bit of a pause. I'll come back soon. Ah, boys, what is going on here? You should all be burrowing down. That's okay if they don't burrow down. If that happens, we can just collect all of this gunk. I mean, I think that's what we might do now because they're not really burrowing down any deeper. Let's just put that in there and let's just collect all of these, all this worm farm gunk. So I've just collected all of the stuff in here and I put it in here. The main reason for that is that this is not like, it's not really going to go anywhere. The worms weren't really burrowing down in the time that we needed. Let's have a look down in this layer. Cool. So you see all the castings that are left over. Let's get rid of all of that too. Excellent. So I've got these two tubs. So these two yogurt tubs, these can be added into another worm farm. You can put them in the compost. So we've done what we basically need to do for this video, which is harvest some worm castings. Now I'm just going to empty this top layer and it's going to look exactly like this. This is going to go over here. We're going to refill this eventually and get a new worm farm established. So let's just put all of this back on top. None of that ever matters. So this worm farm is now empty. Let me go wash my hands. So that's that. This is our worm farm. It's now empty. There's nothing in the liquid tray. There's nothing in the two resting trays and there's nothing in the feeder tray up here. There's a few worms kicking around, of course, and if I really wanted to, I could go through and clean everything with a hose, but I don't have a hose, so I'm not going to do that. We didn't end up using this for worm castings, but that's okay because I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I've got a whole bunch of other worm farms, so I'll probably just harvest from them and fill this tub up. The tub with worm castings is just down there. That's going to keep for ages. Like I can use that for the next few months. I don't know how long it would last, but I'm going to say like maybe a year or something like that. Who knows? But again, I'm going to use all of this junk, and then I'm going to add that. All of that is going to go into some other worm farms that I have. So that'll help those colonies out. And then I can harvest worms from those worm farms to establish this one. That's it, fam. That's harvesting worm castings. It's a pretty messy job. And again, if you know a better way to do it, please let me know, because that's just the loser way that I've figured out how it works for me. But that's like a mass harvesting. If you just want to get like a handful of castings for, you know, a plant that you're about to pot, you can totally do that. Thanks so much. You guys are legends. I'll see you soon. Bye. Hello, you legends. What's going on?